my roots, where I actually grew up in this place. So therefore, I am kind of normally I don't do these programs. I haven't practically done such seminars, especially using the net, because I'm really a lot of times I'm afraid of this kind of a medium. But because I feel that it sometimes generates more misunderstanding than understanding. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, Prabhu, very clear.
Yeah,
very clear.
So I will start with I'm basically a critic of the modern education system, not because of any other reasons, because of I came to Krishna consciousness when I was doing my master's. And when I read Srila Prabhupada's biography, that's the first time I got introduced to Krishna consciousness, by reading Srila Prabhupada's biography. And then I read a very important, I would say a very small but a very important magazine called Origins. I don't know if you've seen that. This was produced by the Bhaktivedanta Institute way back. It's a small magazine, one-time magazine called Origins, where it systematically was presenting things about science, modern science, all the theories of modern science practically, and giving a perspective on where they are actually insufficient. And that broke my the faith, the tremendous faith that I had on modern science. And ever since that, I understood that the present education system is actually not teaching us the truth. They're only teaching us half the truth. And I was actually taken aback when I read the Origins magazine in those days. There was an article on genetic, genes, and do the genes actually hold hold the key to our evolution and things like that. And there it said wonderfully that there are certain genetic things that happen to us, happens in the genes of every cell. If they are happening the way it is, especially it mentions about DNA guidase, and if DNA guidase has to work, if DNA guidase doesn't work, there is going to be no reproduction. And if there is no reproduction, then there's going to be no genetic mutations. And without genetic mutations, there's going to be no, or genetic reproduction, there is going to be no mutations, which is going to take place. So anyway, putting it very short. So these kind of broke down my tremendous faith in the present day education system. And I began to realize that we are not, the present education system is only telling us half the truth. It is not actually presenting us the whole truth. The first thing that I did, what my education system did to me, I will go step by step. What the first thing that it did to me in this case, when I actually went to education and found out what it is, I found out that they were not presenting the truth. They were not telling us the truth, that actually there are big problems in the theories of evolution. There are big problems in the theories of the whole cosmology that they're talking about, of a Big Bang or whatever it is. There are big problems there. Each one of them have a big problem.
I'm sorry, Prabhu. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Prabhu. Prabhu, with your permission, can you translate, because we have English speaking devotee as well?
Oh, you'll translate
line by line, Prabhu.
Sentence? Oh,
yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Sorry, Prabhu. तो प्रभु जी ने बताया कि किस प्रकार से उनकी जो आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली है उसमें जो उनकी श्रद्धा थी किस प्रकार से कम है, क्योंकि वो जो सत्य प्रस्तुत कर रहे हैं वो आधा सत्य है. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So the first thing that I understood, that they are not presenting the truth, and for the truth I have to look for education. I have to educate myself.
और उस सत्य की प्राप्ति के लिए हमें स्वयं को अपने आप को शिक्षित करना होगा.
Present education system, the biggest problem that it has, I will start one by one.
तो एक-एक करके मैं बताऊंगा जो आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली है उसमें क्या कमी है.
First thing that it did, you see, the language that locally was in that area, the local language was a tribal language called Khasi. And
तो जहाँ पे मैंने अध्ययन किया वहाँ पे जो मातृभाषा थी वहाँ पे, वो खासी करके वहाँ पे जो लोकल वहाँ की जो भाषा थी।
And it was a spoken dialect. They've just started writing that dialect.
तो उस
And
समय वो खाली वार्तालाप करते थे, उसको लिखना शुरू किया, लिपिबद्ध में शुरू किया।
And we were never told. I never learned that language.
और मैं कभी उस भाषा को सीखा नहीं था, हमें बताया नहीं गया।
And so that is the first thing that modern education is doing. It is taking us away from our languages.
तो पहली चीज जो हो रही है आधुनिक शिक्षा के द्वारा, आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली के द्वारा हमारे जो मातृभाषाएं हैं उनसे हमको दूर कर रहे हैं।
And it is making us foreigners on our own land. We become a foreigner in our own land because we don't know the language of the land.
तो स्वयं की भूमि पर हम लोग एक पाश्चात्य बन जाते हैं क्योंकि हम अपने स्वयं की भूमि के भाषाओं को नहीं जानते।
We are busy learning languages like English and other languages and thinking that is going to give us jobs or going to give us careers. But what does it mean? You mean to say there is no careers if you learn the local language? That is not true.
तो हम समझते हैं कि अगर अंग्रेजी भाषा हम नहीं जानेंगे तो कैसे फिर हमको काम मिलेगा, कैसे हम अपना करियर बना पाएंगे। तो इसका क्या अर्थ है? अगर हमको अगर अंग्रेजी भाषा नहीं आती, अपनी जो मातृभाषा है उसको हम जानते हैं, तो क्या हम कुछ व्यवसाय नहीं कर पाएंगे? ये सत्य नहीं है।
So by not learning the languages of the place where we live, we have become alienated from the land.
तो जहां पर हम रहते हैं, जिस भूमि की, जब वहां की भाषा को हम नहीं जानते हैं, तो वहां से हम बिल्कुल अपने आप को अलग समझते हैं, पृथक हो जाते हैं वहां के लोगों से भी और भूमि से भी।
And if you don't know the language of a land or your own language or your own land, your own mother tongue, you are actually, when you don't know the language, in the language, the whole culture is there.
क्योंकि जहां की हमारी जो सॉरी प्रभु, तो जो भूमि की जो भाषा है वो उससे खाली भाषा ही नहीं, वो हमें संस्कृति वहां की सिखाती है।
Because with the language comes the different seasons, how they have to be used, different usages that are on a day-to-day basis, like how a particular fruit has to be eaten. There is a local saying about it. How that land behaves, how the seasons behave. There are local sayings about this. So without knowing this language, we are actually separated from the whole culture and the land of that place.
क्योंकि भाषा से ही फिर वहां के ऋतुओं के बारे में, उस ऋतु में जो फल आते हैं उस फल को कैसे ग्रहण करना है उसके बारे में कुछ अलग अलग कहावतें होती हैं। तो अगर हम भाषा ही नहीं जानते हैं तो इसका मतलब उस भाषा के साथ में पूरी जो संस्कृति होती है वो लुप्त हो जाती है।
Like for example, I'll give you one example of what Srila Prabhupada told us. He said, "Khao to khao, jao to khao, jodi khao to poshe, jabe to jabe, jodi jao to soche." In that Bengali saying, Prabhupada says, if you want to eat, you shouldn't generally eat. If you're in doubt whether you should eat or not, you should not eat. But on one season you can eat, because in that time there is a very strong hunger. That is the month of Posh.
तो एक बंगाली कहावत में श्री प्रभुपाद जी कहते हैं कि जब आपको खाने की इच्छा हो तो खाइए, नहीं खाने की इच्छा हो तो मत खाइए, लेकिन एक महत्वपूर्ण ऋतु जो है उसमें आप कुछ भी खा सकते हैं क्योंकि उस समय भूख की बहुत बढ़त होती है, वो पोष का जो महीना होता है।
So, but now, I mean, I practically grew up learning the months or the ritus not as you know Bhadrapad and all those other things, but January, February, March, April, May. And this is not according to the land, the ritus of the land, the seasons of the land, how things work on the land, in this area particularly. So I've been separated by that, and therefore I will not understand how this land behaves. So therefore I become alienated from the land and the culture and the seasons and the environment of this land when I'm separated from the language of the land.
तो जैसे कि जब हमने अध्ययन किया तो हम लोग जनवरी, फरवरी, मार्च हम लोग को ये सिखाया गया महीने के बारे में, न कि जो भादो, सावन, पोष, ये सब ये हमने नहीं सीखा। तो उससे क्या हुआ कि चूंकि ये यहाँ के ये महीने जो हैं वो इस भूमि से अवगत नहीं है, तो जो भी यहाँ की संस्कृति है, उस महीने में क्या करना है, उस महीने के जो जो महत्वपूर्ण बातें हैं, वो सब हमको लुप्त हो गया, क्योंकि हमको उस भूमि की भाषा नहीं सिखाई गई।
So when we try to adjust January, February, March and the ritus, they don't match. The
तो ये
ritus
जो
match. Yes.
तो अंग्रेजी कैलेंडर जो है, उससे हम देखते हैं जो ऋतु है वो उससे बिल्कुल तालमेल नहीं खाता।
जो Georgian calendar, the Georgian calendar that we are using in English currently, that's being used all over the world, is actually a Georgian calendar, and that is primarily for, you know, it's set for Western Europe, and it's
तो
not
ये
for us here.
तो ये जो बता रहे हैं प्रभु जी, जॉर्जियन कैलेंडर जो है, जो विशेष रूप से ये जो पश्चिम यूरोप के लोग हैं उनके लिए है, ये हम लोग के लिए नहीं है।
So therefore, through not learning the language and whatever goes with the language, we become separated from our land. And being separated from our land, we actually do not know what to do on this land. And therefore, we think there is nothing for us to do on this land because we are separated. We don't know our land. We don't know our culture and land and the culture that it requires, the way we need to live in this land.
तो ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात बता रहे हैं प्रभु जी की इसीलिए हम लोग चूंकि इसको नहीं जानते हैं, ऋतुओं को नहीं जानते हैं, भाषा को नहीं जानते हैं, भाषा की वजह से हम ऋतुओं को नहीं जानते हैं, उसके महत्व को नहीं जानते हैं, इसलिए हम अपनी भूमि से पृथक हो गए हैं। अब उस भूमि पे हमें करना क्या है हमें समझ में नहीं आता, अपनी स्वयं की भूमि पे क्या करें हमें समझ में नहीं आता।
So, and the present education system has made us practically, what do you call it, a person without any identity, a proper identity. Even though I have a language, which is my mother's language, my mother tongue, my father's language, and with it, the culture that goes around with it, and the local languages that are there in this language, there's so many things to be done. I'll give you one example of how knowing the local language and the local area, so many things can happen.
तो वर्तमान जो आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली है, इसमें हमारी पहचान जो है बिल्कुल लुप्त हो गई है, क्योंकि हम किस भाषा को जानते हैं, कहाँ की जो वहाँ की जो लोकल भाषा होती है, उससे हमारी कैसी पहचान बनती है, इसके बारे में एक उदाहरण प्रभु जी हमें देने वाले हैं।
Currently, I think there is an industry which is worth more than 1,500 crore industry here in Assam, and that is, believe it or not, of the broom, the soft broom that we use, the organic soft broom, not the plastic brooms that are being made today, but organic soft brooms, which are there. These organic soft brooms, I was actually there the other day, just 3 days ago, on the property, which is primarily growing that as a grass. That grows wild, they're growing it as a grass. And that is imported and exported all over the world because it is organic, it is very nice to use. And it is, it's an ahimsa way of cleaning your house. When you use a vacuum cleaner, you actually kill all the small ants and insects and everything because you vacuum it away. And when you use a broom, which is plastic, you're creating electrostatic forces in your house. Whereas this soft broom that is there is actually cleaning your house without doing any harm to the insects and other animals, small insects that are there in your house, the spiders and the ants, etc.
तो ये बहुत ही सूक्ष्म बात है प्रभु जी बता रहे हैं, शायद हम लोग को नहीं ज्ञात होगा ये। तो बता रहे हैं कि आसाम में वहां पर लगभग 1500 इंडस्ट्री,
I think it is a 1,500 crore business currently.
तो 1500 करोड़ का वहां पर व्यापार है, जहां पर वो लोग क्या करते हैं, जो कृत्रिम रूप के झाड़ू होते हैं, जो प्लास्टिक के होते हैं उस तरह से, वो झाड़ू वहां पर तैयार करते हैं। जबकि प्रभु जी बता रहे हैं कुछ दिन पहले वहां पर गए थे, जहां पर वो जो स्वाभाविक रूप से जो उगती है, एक तरह के जो वृक्ष के तने होते हैं जिससे बनाए जाते हैं झाड़ू, वहां पर गए थे प्रभु जी। तो बता रहे हैं कि जो घर में हम सफाई करते हैं, अगर वैक्यूम क्लीनिंग से करते हैं तो उसमें जो छोटे छोटे जंतु होते हैं वो सबकी मृत्यु हो जाती है, वो हिंसा हो जाती है। और अगर हम प्लास्टिक के झाड़ू से झाड़ू लगाते हैं तो उससे भी एक धारा, इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक जो धारा होती है वो वहां पर, इलेक्ट्रोस्टैटिक धारा वो उत्पन्न होती है। लेकिन जो स्वाभाविक जो पेड़ों से झाड़ू बनते हैं, जो उससे जो बनते हैं झाड़ू, उससे पूरी सफाई हो जाती है और कोई हिंसा नहीं होती, कोई समस्या नहीं आती है।
And this jharu is so easy. There are hundreds and there are a lot of people who are growing this now. They are growing this on the land, and it grows on practically on hillsides where you can't do any cultivation, and it grows very easily in these areas. And but because I am thinking, I've been trained in a school with a language which is far away from. I don't know the land. I don't know all these aspects of my land. So I don't see a career in brooms, whereas it's such a huge career that is there. A huge career in brooms and broomsticks, which is which everyone uses, and which in India practically it goes to every home practically. A broom from this northeast part is not available. I don't know about it, and people from some other part of the country have come here and made a big business out of this broom, whereas I have been alienated from this broom, and I go and do some other technological study, and I'm trying to earn some money in a very complicated way in a new land where I don't know. I'm a foreigner in some lands where I'm not really welcome. I'm a second class citizen, or not really welcome to that place, but I'm trying to make a career there. Whereas the very things that are around me, I don't understand, and how they can actually help me make a livelihood.
तो चूंकि मेरी शिक्षा जो है बाहर हुई, यहाँ से नहीं हुई है, तो ये जो होते हैं, जो झाड़ू से बनते हैं, ये पौधे जो होते हैं वो अपने आप, जो पहाड़ी इलाके हैं वहां पर अपने आप उग जाते हैं बिना कुछ ज्यादा प्रयास किए। तो क्योंकि मैं यहाँ पर शिक्षा ग्रहण नहीं किया हूँ, मैं बाहर शिक्षा ग्रहण किया हूँ, तो मैं देख नहीं पाता हूँ कि इसमें इतना व्यवसाय हम कर सकते हैं। ये बहुत उपयोगी है, लाभदायक है, और इसके लिए मैं बिल्कुल यहाँ से पृथक हो गया हूँ, और दूसरे लोग बाहर से आकर के यहाँ पर अच्छा व्यापार कर रहे हैं, और मैं कहीं और पर जाकर कुछ और इंडस्ट्री में औद्योगिक रूप से कुछ काम करने का प्रयास कर रहा हूँ, जहाँ पर जो मेरे लिए वो प्रवासी नहीं है, अप्रवासी स्थान है, वो अप्रवासी स्थान।
So and therefore this is creating a problem for all our people when we don't see a career here, and we see a career somewhere else, because
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sorry, Prabhu, I think we lost you, Prabhu, in between. Connection was lost.
Yeah. So am I back now?
No, it's okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. Okay. So coming back. I've lost my connection with the land. I've lost my connection with what I can live on this land, and how to live on this land. And on my own land, I mean, I am not so fluent in my own language, and I cannot read and write as fluently as I should in my own language, whereas I am somewhere else. And in someone else's language, you can never be proficient in someone else's language, because that's not who we are being made. We are all, everyone becomes very proficient in their own mother tongue. It is very difficult to learn another language and to become so proficient. Very few people can do it. Exception proves the rule that you can never really become very proficient in someone else's language. So I'm off touch with my own language. I'm trying to learn a new language, trying to make a career in another place, in another culture, whereas I don't understand. I've lost my connections with my land because of the language, and I've become an alien in my own land. So this is my first, what do you call it, critique of the modern education that I received.
तो ये पहली आलोचना है जो बता रहे हैं कि किस प्रकार से, जब चूंकि हमें अपनी भूमि की भाषा का ज्ञान नहीं है, उस भूमि के जो लोग हैं, आसपास के लोग हैं, लोग को लगे उनसे कोई संपर्क नहीं, उनसे हमारा कोई संबंध नहीं, फिर हम वहां पर जाके काम कर रहे हैं जहाँ पर कि हमको उसकी भाषा के बारे में ज्यादा जानकारी नहीं है और वहाँ के हम सीख करके वहाँ पर काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ पर क्या करना है उसके बारे में हमें कोई भी ज्ञान नहीं है। हम पूर्ण रूप से उसको लुप्त हो चुके हैं और हम समझते फिर हमें ये ज्ञात नहीं होता कि हमें करना क्या है।
Yeah. So there is another thing about languages is that you can also learn the sister languages of the language where you're living. And by learning the sister languages, you also develop a relationship with the other communities around you that are there. So through languages, you can build the bridges, you can make friends, you can actually learn to live with it, and actually expand your understanding and relationship with the nearby communities. And because of not learning all those languages and rather being trained to learn a very foreign language called English, I have been separated from this whole culture and the neighboring cultures that I should have learned and known.
तो जब अपनी भूमि की भाषा को हम जानते हैं तो उसके साथ वाले जो उसके जो भ्राता कह लीजिए आप, जो वो भाषा है वो भी हम जानते हैं, तो आसपास लोगों से हमारा संबंध बनता है, एक पुल बनता है और इस तरह से विस्तार होता है और फिर हम उनके भी संस्कृति को हम जानने का प्रयास करते हैं। तो इस तरीके से ये पूरा सामाजिक वातावरण बहुत सुंदर बनता है। लेकिन अभी हम चूंकि अपने भाषा को भूल करके जिसको हम अभी अंग्रेजी भाषा कह रहे हैं, एक अजनबी भाषा, उसको सीख करके अभी हम अपनी ही भूमि पर एक अजनबी जैसे हो गए।
And therefore, in fact, there was once, I think, a long time ago, I was listening. I happened to be in a bus traveling from, I think, Mumbai to Mangalore. In those days, there were no trains. So this was a 24-hour bus ride. And at that time, I was traveling in the bus. And as I was traveling the bus, I happened to be in a movie there. They were showing these movies. And I remember they were saying one statement there. In Hindi, they were saying, please pardon my Hindi, it's not so good. 1947 के पहले अंग्रेज भारतीयों को मार रहे थे, and 1947 के बाद अंग्रेजी भारतीयों को मार रहे हैं.
Very correctly pronounced, Prabhu.
So what is happening today is that a lot of our children, especially from the rural areas or from the vernacular background or whose homes do not have so much of a culture of English, and even if they do, they really don't, it's not their mother tongue, and they're having difficulty passing English exam because English is almost compulsory in all schools today. And if they can't pass English, then it's not just a question of if they can't pass their exams, which is itself a bad thing. Then again, what happens to them is that they feel complexity that, oh, I don't know English. And they are in so much difficulty that they're trying to, it becomes a complexity for them. It becomes an inferiority complex that I don't know English. So therefore, again, this is another thing that is happening.
तो दूसरा हम देखते हैं कि जिस प्रकार से जो अंग्रेजी भाषा है अभी जो कि हर स्कूल में विद्यालय में हो गई है, तो जो बच्चे जहाँ पर जो उनका ये मातृभाषा नहीं है, उनको बहुत संघर्ष करना होता है, और अगर उनको लगता है कि अगर वो फेल हो जाएंगे तो फिर उनका एग्जाम में वो उत्तीर्ण नहीं हो पाएंगे, तो उनको एक ऐसे अंदर से कुछ ऐसा उनको एक ऐसा डर,
funny language, and which is not our language anyways.
तो अंग्रेजी वैसे देखा जाए तो बड़ी हास्यास्पद ये भाषा है देखा जाए तो, जहाँ पर हम CUT तो वहाँ पर कट कहते हैं, PUT पुट कहते हैं, कहीं पे ऊ कहीं पे ए, चाहे वो यू लगा हो तब भी। तो इस प्रकार से देखते हैं कि फिर आगे बढ़ते बढ़ते फिर ये अंग्रेजी भाषा वो बिल्कुल आवश्यक हो जाती है और आगे की सारी जो उच्च शिक्षा है वो सब अंग्रेजी भाषा में हो जाती है, और जो जिनकी जो मातृभाषा नहीं है उनको बहुत संघर्ष करना होता है।
So this is my first critique of the modern language and the system that is there. And there can be many things that can be said more about the language, because language is so important for us. If you look around, what do you actually do? Most of us land up when we're doing our careers, etc. What is the most important thing that we do eventually in life? We may be educated in so many ways, in different ways, but which is the most important thing that we do in life is to speak.
तो हम देखते हैं कि भाषा जो है वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। हम चाहे कितने में शिक्षित हो जाएं और समाज में रहते हैं, तो हम देखते हैं कि ज्यादा हम क्या करते हैं, हम लोग वार्तालाप करते हैं। Yes, sir.
And when we speak, we have to have a good command over the language.
और जब वार्तालाप करते हैं तो उसमें भाषा का अच्छा ज्ञान होना चाहिए.
And how to speak is it's a very important art.
और ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण एक कला है कैसे हमें बोलना है.
Even Krishna says how to speak in the Bhagavad Gita.
भगवान श्री कृष्ण कहते हैं
अनुद्वेगकरं वाक्यं सत्यं प्रियहितं च यत् स्वाध्यायाभ्यासनं चैव वन्मया तपो उच्यते. So he says that anudvegakaram vakyam, when we should speak in such a way that the other person is not agitated by what we speak. Anudveg, udveg. We do not create udveg in the other person when we speak. Anudvegakaram vakyam. Satyam priyahitam chayat. It should be truthful and it should be for the benefit of the person benefit of the person to whom we are speaking. And so, yes, go ahead.
Sorry. तो भगवद गीता के 17वें अध्याय में बताते हैं भगवान किस प्रकार से हमें बोलना चाहिए. जो वाणी की जो तपस्या है कि किसी को उद्वेग न करें और उनके हित के लिए होना चाहिए और सत्य होना चाहिए.
Whereas it is so important for us to speak and speaking is so important for us in life. And if you speak one thing wrongly, it can create such a big problem. Even in the family, we can create a serious misunderstanding just by speaking wrongly.
और इतना महत्वपूर्ण है अच्छे रूप से बोलना, उचित रूप से बोलना, क्योंकि कहीं पर थोड़ी त्रुटि हो जाती है तो हम देखते हैं कि परिवार में भी बहुत समस्या हो जाती है बोलने की वजह से.
We see commonly, when you have arguments, why did you say like this? आपने इस तरह से क्यों बोला? You think I'm like this, you think I'm like that. It's a very common thing.
तो लोग तर्क उतर्क करते हैं कि आपने ऐसा क्यों बोला, आप ऐसे हैं, मैं ऐसा हूँ. तो ये बहुत ही सामान्य ऐसी बातें होती हैं.
So speaking is very important for all of us. But when
इसलिए बोलना बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है.
But when you go to school, what is the first thing that you hear in school? At least the school that I went to. I don't know about all of you. I think also maybe you all have also been through the same. The first thing that I heard in school when I went to school is keep quiet, shut up.
तो विद्यालय में जब हम जाते हैं, प्रभु जी बता रहे हैं कि ज्यादातर लोग तो कोई बड़े के मैंने सुना सबसे पहला शब्द कि चुप रहो, शांत रहो.
So keep quiet. And the whole school, actually, as you grow up in school, you realize that keeping quiet is actually the virtue. Teachers tell, oh, he's very quiet. He's very, it's a quality. It's a good quality for the child that he does not speak. He keeps quiet in class. So everyone thinks it's a very good quality. And throughout our whole career in school and college, because we learned it early in school that we should not talk, so we all keep quiet in school.
और उस समय जब देखते हैं कि पूरे विद्यालय में ऐसा एक माहौल बन जाता है, वातावरण कि जो बच्चे नहीं बोलते हैं ज्यादा, उनको अच्छा गुण माना जाता है. तो कहते हैं कि देखो बच्चा शांत है, ये शांत रहता है. तो इस प्रकार से ये व्यवहार बनता है कि शांत रहना है, ये अच्छा गुण है.
But when will we learn how to speak?
लेकिन प्रश्न है कि फिर कब हम सीखेंगे कैसे बोलना है.
If you do not learn how to use language properly, how to speak properly, then but eventually in life, what is very important for us is to speak.
तो जब हम सीखेंगे नहीं कि क्या बोलना है, कैसे बोलना है, क्योंकि आगे चल के बहुत आवश्यक है हमें बोलना.
And everything is done by speaking.
और सब कुछ बोलने के द्वारा ही होता है.
So, but the school, for hours and hours, you are kept quiet. You should keep quiet. You should not speak to anyone around you. But tell me, if speaking is so important in life, did you ever learn in any part of your schooling how to speak?
तो हमेशा लेके सिखाते हैं कि आप शांत रहिए, शांत रहिए, शांत रहिए. तो प्रभु जी पूछ रहे हैं प्रश्न कि बताइए क्या कभी हमको सिखाते हैं कि कैसे बोलना है, ये कुछ सिखाता है हमें?
So if you're not taught how to speak, then what has schooling done to you?
तो अगर हमें नहीं सिखाया गया विद्यालय में कि कैसे बोलना है, तो फिर हमें क्या बताया गया विद्यालय में?
So education fails in these two counts straight away in the present education system. First and foremost, it takes you away from language, which is so important for you, for all of us, and learning our own language, our own mother tongue. We get separated from it. Then language separates us from the land and the culture, and how to live on this land. The whole it's kind of within the language is locked the whole culture of the land and how to live on this land and what the land can give to us. So we are deprived of that. Second is it does not speaking is so important in our whole culture. We've been taught mathematics, physics, chemistry, all these things, but we've not been told one thing that we all need on a daily basis is how to speak.
तो दो चीजें ये आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली है उसमें पूर्ण रूप से वो च्युत हो गए हैं। एक तो जो बताया प्रभु जी ने कि किस प्रकार से जो भाषा का जो ज्ञान है, जो भूमि की भाषा, उसी के अंदर सब कुछ निहित है। उस भाषा के माध्यम से वो भूमि हमें क्या दे सकती है, वहां की भूमि की संस्कृति, वो सब कुछ उसमें निहित है, तो उससे हमें अलग कर देती है। और दूसरा, हम सब कुछ सीखते हैं, गणित सीखते हैं, विज्ञान सीखते हैं, लेकिन कैसे बोलना है वो हमें नहीं शिक्षा दी जाती।
And because we do not learn how to speak, which is so important, we do not know how to make relationships with people.
और चूंकि हमें ये सिखाया नहीं जाता कि कैसे बोलना है, इसीलिए हम लोग संबंध जो स्थापित करते हैं कैसे करना है वो भी हम नहीं कर पाते।
And without learning how to speak, how can you establish relationships in the human society?
तो मानव समाज में बिना बोले हुए कैसे हम संबंध स्थापित कर सकते हैं?
So this relationship that we have in this human society is established on the basis of speaking. But in our whole career of 20 years in schools and colleges, we were never taught how to speak.
तो मनुष्य समाज में हम देखते हैं कि पूरा जो संबंध होता है वो पूरा व्यवसाय वो विस्तृत है किसके ऊपर? वो आधारभूत है बोलने के ऊपर। लेकिन हमारे 20 वर्ष के पूरे समय जो विद्यालय में जाते हैं उसमें कहीं पर हमको कैसे अच्छे से बोलना है नहीं सिखाया जाता।
And where do we learn how to speak?
तो कहाँ हम सीखते हैं कैसे बोलना है?
It's from a family.
अपने परिवार से।
And in a family, who is actually the conversationalist of the family?
और परिवार में कौन है जो इस वार्तालाप को नियंत्रित करते हैं?
And who's the one who actually, when guests come to the house, who's the person who actually speaks a lot, who starts the conversation? You know, there's a way to start a conversation, to carry forward the conversation, keep people engaged in the conversation. You know, this is how we keep a relationship going. So in a family, who's the person who's actually the conversationalist of the family?
तो जब कोई अतिथि आते हैं तो कौन उनसे वार्तालाप शुरू करते हैं, फिर कैसे एक दूसरे को वार्तालाप में लगाते हैं, इस प्रकार से पूरा संबंध स्थापित होता है। तो परिवार में कौन है जो वो वार्तालाप में निपुण है?
Because when you're speaking, it is also important that you speak, and sometimes you may also have to, keep the speaking away from some contentious issues, which can cause some bad feelings.
तो उस समय वार्तालाप भी होनी है और हमें ये भी ध्यान रखना है कि उसकी वजह से कोई जो बुरा विचार या बुरा प्रभाव वो नहीं आए, उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए वार्तालाप करनी है।
So it is normally the mother in the family or the lady of the family who's actually the conversationalist of the family.
तो देखा जाए तो माता या जो स्त्रियां होती हैं वही वार्तालाप वही शुरुआत करती हैं।
But in our education system, we don't have a place for speaking, and the art of speaking is not there.
लेकिन हमारे शिक्षा प्रणाली में ये बोलने की जो कला है वो नहीं है।
Chanakya, in his Niti, Chanakya Niti, Prabhupada quotes Chanakya Niti regularly. And in Chanakya Niti, there's one shloka. And the shloka goes like this. Prithivim tu trini ratnani, jalam annam shubhashitam, mudhe pashanu khandeshu, ratna samya vidhiyate. That on this earth, there are three ratnas, there are three jewels only. And they are jalam, Annam, and Subhashitam.
तो चाणक्य नीति से एक श्लोक प्रभु जी कोट कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर, जो प्रभुपाद जी चाणक्य नीति को सामान्य रूप से कई जगह पर कोट करते थे, कि इसमें बताया गया कि इस श्लोक के माध्यम से कि 3 चीजें जो हैं वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। एक तो जल, अन्न और शुभाषित।
And he says these are the 3 ratnas of this world, the 3 jewels of this world.
तो ये संसार के 3 रत्न हैं ये।
And anyone who thinks that some pashan or some stone or lifeless thing is pashano mudhe pashano khandeshu ratna samya vidyate, and one who thinks that some pashan is actually stone is ratna, he's a fool number 1.
तो कोई व्यक्ति अगर किसी भी पत्थर को समझते हैं कि ये रत्न है तो वो मूर्ख नंबर 1 है।
So we are looking for ratna in terms of gold, silver, or some jewels or anything like that, or even a lot of y'all are in from Middle East, where the wealth is actually we're thinking the wealth is actually the oil. But Chanakya says actually on this earth there are 3 things which are only wealth, and that is jalam, annam, and subhashitam.
तो हम लोग समझ सकते हैं, कुछ सोच सकते हैं कि जो स्वर्ण है, चांदी है, हीरे हैं, जवाहरात, ये रत्न है, या जो अभी खाड़ी देशों में रहते हैं हम लोग, प्रभु जी बता रहे हैं, वो लोग समझ सकते हैं जो तेल है, जो तेल निकल रहे हैं, पेट्रोल, डीजल, ये रत्न है। लेकिन चाणक्य पंडित कह रहे हैं कि सिर्फ 3 चीजें जो हैं उनको संसार में रत्न बताया गया, जल, अन्न और शुभाषितम।
So if people do not know how to speak properly, subhashita, how to proper speech is one of the ratnas of the world in our Vedic culture.
तो वैदिक सभ्यता के अनुसार अगर लोग नहीं जानते हैं कैसे बोलना है शुभाषित, तो ये इसको एक रत्न बताया गया है।
And how to speak is such an important thing, but the modern education system it's not even in their agenda to teach people this.
ये इतना महत्वपूर्ण है कैसे बोलना है, लेकिन हम देखते हैं कि आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली में ये इसको नहीं सिखाया जाता है।
And currently, if you I'm sure you'll have sometimes seeing the world situation that is there. There is a world leader currently who doesn't know how to speak well, and you can see it's creating so much of a hard feeling amongst people, because even he's having a hard time because he doesn't know how to speak properly, and because of which he's having a hard time, the world is having a hard time, and there are protests against him because he doesn't know how to speak.
तो वर्तमान समय में हम लोग देख सकते हैं कि जो विश्व के नेता जैसे लोग हैं वो ठीक से बोलना नहीं जानते, ठीक से नहीं बोल पाते हैं, और उसकी वजह से सब लोग काफी परेशान हैं और उनके विरोध आंदोलन कर रहे हैं, विरोध प्रकट करते हैं, और वो स्वयं भी परेशान है क्योंकि उन्हें पता नहीं कैसे अच्छे से बोलना है।
And if we don't know how to speak properly, we rue ourselves sometimes. We think, oh, I shouldn't have spoken like this. I should have spoken, and so we feel bad by not speaking the wrong thing during a conversation, and because of which there are a lot of hard feelings. So speech is so important, but the modern education system doesn't think it at all important, and there is no way that such a thing is taught.
तो ये बोलना इतना महत्वपूर्ण है कि हम देखते हैं कभी कभी वार्तालाप होती है तो हम हमेशा ये ध्यान रखते हैं कि कहीं हमसे कुछ ऐसे शब्द निकल जाए जिसका परिणाम बुरा हो। तो इतना महत्वपूर्ण है ये बोलना, लेकिन हम देखते हैं कि आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली में इसके बारे में कोई शिक्षा नहीं दी जाती।
And how a person speaks, it reflects on his family, on how people perceive him. And then the great orators actually have changed the world. The world has been changed by great orators. But this is even basic, how to speak some basic language is not being, carry out a basic conversation is not being taught to us. So we will end this section here, and we'll go to the next thing that the modern education system fails to teach us.
तो इतना महत्वपूर्ण है ये बोलना, हम देखते हैं कि बोलने की वजह से लोग जो है वो काफी कुछ परिवर्तन ला सकते हैं, संसार में प्रभावित करते हैं, जो अच्छे वक्ता होते हैं, वाक्पटु होते हैं, लेकिन हम देख रहे हैं कि इसको आजकल की शिक्षा प्रणाली में बिल्कुल सिखाया नहीं जाता है। तो यहाँ पर हम इस बिंदु को विराम देते हैं और अगले बिंदु पर जाते हैं।
So we will now talk about another thing that modern education system, at least education system that I grew up in, I learned about Western history of the Western world. I learned about Indian history, medieval history. I learned about a lot of things about Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and the Second World War, First World War, and all these things, which are definitely very good. But believe it or not, I didn't learn the local history because it was not in
तो
the syllabus. It was not thought to be very important to be taught in the local syllabus.
तो मैं जहाँ पर पढ़ा हूँ तो मेरी शिक्षा में मैंने जो इतिहास के बारे में जो मैंने अध्ययन किया तो मुझे भारतीय इतिहास और पाश्चात्य देशों के इतिहास हैं उनके बारे में भी अध्ययन किया, जिसमें मोहनजोदड़ो, हड़प्पा और द्वितीय विश्व युद्ध। लेकिन आप विश्वास नहीं करेंगे, मुझे जो जहाँ पर मैं रहता हूँ वहाँ के इतिहास के बारे में, मेरा जो लोकल इतिहास, वहाँ लोकल भूमि के इतिहास के बारे में कोई हमें सिखाया नहीं, क्योंकि वो हमारे सिलेबस में था ही नहीं।
And they never thought it was important for us to learn such things. They thought it is so not so important. Anyone can, it's not, we don't need to learn such things.
क्योंकि उन्होंने सोचा कि ये तो महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है, क्योंकि कोई भी समझ सकते हैं इसको, ये इतना महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है इसको सिखाना।
But then, actually, the place, like for example, why was this place had this name? There is a history behind it. It's around you. Why was this land called like this? For example, we have when we go to Mayapur, we learn those things. This is called Mamagachi. This is called this is called that. There are names. These places have those particular names because of certain. One place is called Gopalpur. What is the purpose? There is a history why that place is called Gopalpur, or that place is called Dandabhanga or something like that. But we don't know. I mean, if you're living in near Puri, I don't think most people, children of that area, know why that place is called Dandabhanga.
तो प्रभु जी कह रहे हैं कि
you never know.
जो स्थानीय भूमि होती है, वहां पर जो स्थान होते हैं जिनका नाम होता है, उस नाम के पीछे भी इतिहास होता है। जैसे मांगाची और दंडभंगा, ये सब जो स्थान है इनके ऊपर एक पूरा इतिहास है, क्यों इसका ये नाम पड़ा। तो इसके बारे में हम कोई शिक्षा नहीं देता है, ताकि जो वहाँ के स्थायी लोग हैं जो रहते हैं वो जो अभी आजकल के जो बच्चे हैं उनको शायद नहीं पता हो कि इसका नाम ऐसा क्यों रखा गया, क्यों नाम का मतलब क्या है।
And very soon those things get forgotten. We rename the roads, we rename those areas into something else because we want to name it after some new politicians. But the history of that place is gone.
और बहुत ही जल्दी फिर उसका नाम परिवर्तित कर दिया जाता है। जो भी नए राजनीतिक आते हैं वो उसका रोड का कुछ और नाम रख देते हैं, स्थान का कुछ और नाम रख देते हैं। तो कुछ ही दिन में वो भूल जाते हैं उसका इतिहास पूरा, क्योंकि उस स्थान के पीछे इतिहास है।
So here in Assam and Guwahati that I'm sitting here in front of us, we have a hill, a big hill, and it's called the Narakasur Hill. Actually, Krishna came here to take all his 16,000 wives from here. It's named Narakasur Hill, but when I was here, before I came to Krishna consciousness, I never knew all those things. So, yes, go ahead.
अभी मैं यहाँ पर आसाम में गुवाहाटी में जहाँ पे बैठे हैं, प्रभु जी अभी बता रहे हैं, यहाँ पे पास में सामने एक पर्वत शिखर है, उसका नाम है नरकासुर पर्वत शिखर। और भगवान श्री कृष्ण जब अपने 16,000 रानियों को लेकर यहाँ पर आए थे, तो प्रभु जी कह रहे हैं कि जब मैं कृष्ण भावना भावित जीवन में आने के पहले मुझे इसके बारे में पता ही नहीं था।
This place has a history. That is why the name of that hill is like that.
तो ये स्थान का एक इतिहास से संबंध है कि क्यों इस स्थान का नाम ऐसे पड़ा।
So these local histories actually make you learn and understand your local area very well. What is connected with those lands? What are the significance of each place? It is connected with our living in that, and that is how a person grows up knowing his own land and own areas, and being connected with the reality around him. But today's education system has made us so sterilized that we don't care or we don't know what is around us, what is happening around us, who's doing what around us, why these places are like this, why these places are named like that. We have no understanding. We have forgotten the history. We have been so-called taught big time history that we just don't even know even the basic history or even our land around us.
तो स्थानीय इतिहास जो है उसमें पूरा जो तथ्य छुपा हुआ है, स्थानीय जो भूमि है, वहाँ के लोग, वहाँ की संस्कृति, वहाँ के इतिहास के बारे में, ये पूरा इसके बारे में कोई शिक्षा हमें नहीं मिल रहा है। तो कभी कभी हम लोग बहुत कुछ जानते हैं बाकी पूरे विश्व के बारे में, लेकिन अपने स्थानीय भूमि के जो इतिहास है उनका नाम क्यों पड़ा, ये स्थान ऐसे क्यों है, इसके बारे में कोई शिक्षा नहीं।
I'll tell you another example. Northeast is also like that, but I'll tell you the example of where I'm living. I'm living in a place which is called the Western Ghats, the Paschimi Ghat. It's on the border of Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Goa. And there it is. It's one of the 60 ecological hotspots of the world, where there's a lot of biodiversity.
तो कोई बता रहे हैं कि अभी जहाँ पर मैं स्थित हूँ, ये जो पूर्व उत्तर या जहाँ पर इसको पश्चिमी घाट कहते हैं, ये महाराष्ट्र, कर्नाटक और गोवा इसका ये सीमा है, यहाँ पर लगता है, और बहुत से इतिहास यहाँ पर है।
And there is a lot of biodiversity. There are a lot of plants that grow in that area, which is unique to those areas and practically are endangered.
और यहाँ पे बहुत से दुर्लभ वनस्पतियाँ जो हैं वो यहाँ पर उगती हैं, बहुत दुर्लभ हैं।
But because I have a syllabus which is made in Delhi, and I have to pass my CBSE exam, and I know about, and they have formulated some exam system for me. I know things about some other part of the world, but I don't know the biodiversity or the endangered species amongst which I live.
तो हमने दिल्ली में जो पढ़े हैं, सिलेबस जो कोर्स बना है उसका अध्ययन कर रहे हैं, वो किसी और देश के किसी और प्रांत के वनस्पतियों के बारे में, वहां के दुर्लभ वनस्पतियों के बारे में अध्ययन हम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन अपने स्वयं जो स्थानीय दुर्लभ वनस्पतियां हैं उसके बारे में कोई ज्ञान नहीं, जहाँ पर हम रहते हैं।
There are some very rare, the most rarest of rare animals in our area, plants in my area. And what do? I just, because I've not been taught, my syllabus is different, my schooling is different. It's not in my syllabus. So I think it is simply some jungle. It's some useless plants. But actually what you have around you is a very rare place, very rare, probably endangered, which if I don't take care, will be destroyed. So this is leading to a destruction of the local flora and fauna. Yeah, you can translate. Hare Krishna. Should I continue?
Sorry, I missed Prabhu, last part I missed Prabhu.
Yeah, what is happening is because we are in this situation where we don't understand how important this local flora and fauna is, such endangered species that I have around us, which probably is not available in any other part of the world. But because I've not been educated, I've not known the importance of these things, I've not been told to identify these plants, I think it is simply some waste of just some jungle or some weeds that are growing around my house.
तो चूंकि हो सकता है कि हमारे यहाँ पर इतने दुर्लभ वनस्पतियां, दुर्लभ बहुत से जंतु यहाँ पर पाए जाते हैं हमारे स्थानीय भूमि के ऊपर, लेकिन चूंकि हम इसके बारे में कोई शिक्षा प्राप्त नहीं किए हैं, तो हमको लगता है कि ये कोई साधारण से ही कोई वनस्पति है, उस पर उतना ध्यान नहीं दे पाते, उसके महत्ता को हम नहीं जानते हैं।
And therefore, like for example, in our area, we have a lot of, it's one of those places which has, a lot of snakes, very important snakes in our area. And mind you, not all snakes are poisonous. And snakes play a very important role in in maintaining our culture and maintaining there is one Naga Panchami, which we also celebrate. And, they also play a very important role in the whole ecosystem. But we had some friends who came to teach the children of the local area about the snakes in the local area. And guess what the children were asking these people? Can you tell us what is the anaconda?
तो यहाँ पे पास में एक स्थान है जहाँ पर कि बहुत से विशेष सर्पों का स्थान है वो, और सारे सर्प जो है वो विषैले नहीं होते हैं, तो उसमें से कुछ, और सर्पों की वैसे भी काफी संस्कृति जो है उसको लोग पहचानते हैं, जैसे कि नाग पंचमी एक उत्सव आता है और उनका संस्कृति में और वातावरण में, पर्यावरण में बहुत उनका बड़ा योगदान रहता है। तो एक बार यहाँ पर जब स्थानीय एक लोग आए, उस सांप के बारे में, सर्पों के बारे में बता रहे थे बच्चों को, तो अब सोचिए एक बच्चे पूछ रहे हैं उनसे कि अनाकोंडा यहाँ पर मिलेगा क्या, अनाकोंडा ऐसा कुछ होता है क्या?
So anaconda is probably even a mystical snake. It has no relevance to us in this area. The child knows about anaconda, but it doesn't know the local snakes in that area.
तो अनाकोंडा जो है वो हो सकता है कि वो छवि में कहीं देख करके या पिक्चर में देख करके वो उसका नाम ले रहे हैं, लेकिन वो अपने स्थानीय सर्पों के बारे में कोई ज्ञान।
So this is how our education policy is taking us away. The modern education is taking us away from our land. It is making us alienating us from our land itself and our culture, and how to learn to live off that land. And what is being taught to us is that how to live your life with some products of the industrial things that are being produced by the industrial society.
तो ये आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली जो है उसका ये हम देख सकते हैं दुष्प्रभाव कि अपने स्वयं की भूमि के बारे में, स्वयं की भाषाओं के बारे में, स्वयं की जो भूमि की जो संस्कृति है उन सब से हमको पृथक कर दिया जा रहा है, और हमारा पूरा जीवन किसी ऐसे उत्पादन पर निर्भर है जो कि औद्योगिक इकाइयां जो हैं उससे वो उत्पन्न होती हैं।
I'll give you one example. In the forest there we have a tree which is commonly called as palash, or it is called I think it's called palash, and also the banana leaves that we eat our food on. Palash leaves we used to eat food on, and banana leaves we eat food on. And these leaves have a particular chemical in them which helps it's good for the heart. And these are extracted from these leaves and made them into added with tablets and medicines to give us a good heart. But if you eat hot food on these leaf plates, you naturally get them. So I don't know what is the medicine which is just around me, but I'm getting used to eating medicines coming from a factory.
जैसे उदाहरण दे रहे हैं प्रभु जी, किस प्रकार से जो केले के पत्ते होते हैं और पलाश एक होता है पेड़, उसके पत्ते जिसमें पतली बनती है, पतली और दोना बनता है, तो उसमें लोग भोजन पाते थे पहले लोग। अभी उसमें बता रहे हैं प्रभु जी, उसमें ऐसे केमिकल्स पाते हैं, ऐसे रसायन होते हैं जो हमारे हृदय के लिए बहुत अच्छे होते हैं, तो उसी को निकाल करके और जब वो टैबलेट के रूप में कैप्सूल्स में आते हैं तो लोग उसको ले रहे हैं, ग्रहण कर रहे हैं।
But we are not understanding that if you know your plants around you and you utilize them in the same way, that effect you can get just by eating hot food on these leaf plates. It naturally comes to us.
लेकिन चूंकि हमें पता नहीं है अपने स्थानीय जो वनस्पतियों के बारे में कि अगर गर्म भोजन इस पत्तियों में लिया जाए तो वही जो तत्व रसायन है वो हमारे हृदय में, हमारे अंदर जाएगा और हमें उस रोग से बचाएगा, ये ज्ञान नहीं है हमको।
So therefore, we are disconnected from our land, disconnected from what the land can do for us, what the land is doing for us. And I've seen in the area that I'm living, palash trees seem to be a hindrance. So people are cutting off the palash trees.
तो इसलिए हम लोग अपने स्थानीय भूमि की आवश्यक जो वहाँ की जो चीजें हैं, जो वहाँ के संस्कृति है, उससे बिल्कुल पृथक हो गए हैं। अभी हम प्रभु बता रहे हैं कि जहाँ पे मैं रहता हूँ यहाँ पर काफी पलाश के वृक्ष हैं, लेकिन अब लोग इसको नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं, अब उसको वो एक अवरोध मान रहे हैं, उसको काट रहे हैं, उसके पेड़ों को काट रहे हैं वहाँ पर।
So this is how this whole education system is actually taking us away from our land and the culture and our families, because it's taking us away from the language, from the flora and the fauna, the plants and the animals that are around us, and the history of the place around us. And we are becoming alienated from the very land that we were born in.
तो ये आधुनिक शिक्षा प्रणाली का दुष्प्रभाव हम देखते हैं किस प्रकार से जहाँ पर हम जन्म हुआ है हमारी जिस भूमि पर, उससे हमको बिल्कुल दूर, बिल्कुल पृथक कर देते हैं, वहाँ की भाषा से, वहाँ की संस्कृति, वहाँ की वनस्पतियां, वहाँ के जंतु, उस सब से हमको दूर कर देते हैं।
And then we do not know how to live in that area.
और हम इतने पृथक हो जाते हैं कि अब उस ऐसे भूमि पर कैसे रहना है, क्या करना है, हमें ज्ञात नहीं होता।
And then we leave those places and go to some other place looking for jobs.
और इसीलिए उस स्थानों को छोड़ करके हम बाहर कहीं जाते हैं और कुछ नौकरी ढूंढते हैं।
And someone else will come to that place and utilize those things and make a great living out of it.
और कोई दूसरे लोग फिर हमारी भूमि पर आएंगे और वहां से वो अच्छा उसमें उत्पादन करेंगे और अच्छा धन कमाएंगे.
But then, because they are not connected to the land and the whole culture, they may exploit only one aspect of the land. But they how to live in harmony with the land, that is destroyed.
लेकिन वो लोग भी जो आएंगे वो खाली किसी एक भाग को ले सकते हैं क्योंकि वहां के वो स्थायी निवासी नहीं है, उनको वहां की संस्कृति पता नहीं है, तो वो उसका शोषण कर सकते हैं एक प्रकार से.
So this is how modern education is actually taking us away from our land, from our culture, and from our roots. And therefore, yeah.
आधुनिक शिक्षा किस प्रकार से हमको हमारी संस्कृति, हमारे जो मूल हैं, जो हमारे स्थायी स्थान है, वहां से हमको पृथक कर देते हैं, दूर कर देते हैं.
And it separates us from our scriptures, from our religion in this manner.
और फिर हमारे जो शास्त्र हैं, हमारे जो धर्म हैं, इस प्रकार से वो हमको उससे पृथक कर देते हैं.
Yeah. So it is 4 o'clock, and I think we should end here now. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because we were giving time from 3 to 4. Is that how we should do?
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, Prabhu. With the permission, we'll take 2 questions, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. तो यहाँ पे प्रभु जी विराम देंगे. अगर किसी कोई टीका या कोई प्रश्न है तो हमारे पास 5 मिनट का समय है, हम ले सकते हैं अभी. कोई जिज्ञासा, कोई प्रश्न?
Yes. Someone has a question, I think. Yeah. You can unmute yourself and ask.
You can raise your hand if you're able to unmute. So, yeah. Vasudha Prabhu,
I think I saw two persons saying that they have a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. I'm Champaklata Devidasi here.
Hare Krishna, yes. Yes, Mataji, do you have a question? You said.
Hare Krishna. I request the host not to mute me again, kindly, till I ask the question. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Dandavats, thank you so much for the wonderful class. Prabhuji, you have actually, brought out such beautiful points of how the education system is actually taking us away from our language, culture, tradition, our scriptures, and so on. Prabhuji, though we hear this theoretically so many times, even though I feel that, when I assess myself, there are so many things that personally at individual level that I need to do. But somehow I feel the inability. So where do you think, what do you think that each of us should do in order to bring some change, not just to the self, but also in the society?
Well, thank you, Mataji, for this question. First thing I would say to people, especially who are in the family, I would request them one thing, that if you are speaking a language to your children or in your family, first and foremost, try to learn at least one language properly. If you're speaking in your home to your children in a particular language, please speak only in that language. Do not mix words. If you're speaking in Hindi, speak pure Hindi to your child, so that he learns that what is pure Hindi. Today, what we do is that we mix up all kinds of languages while we are speaking. We use a Hindi word, we use an Urdu word, we use some other words here and there, some slangs. Please use only one language when you're speaking to your children. If you're speaking to them in English, I'm not saying that you should not speak to them in English. If you're speaking English to them, you should speak only English with them. You can speak 2-3 languages to them. It's not an issue. But we should see that when you're speaking in one language to them, he should understand that this is this language. This is Hindi, and it is not Urdu. We use a lot of Urdu words in our Hindi today. So we should tell them that this is not Hindi. This is Urdu, And this is, if you're speaking in Urdu, speak Urdu. And when you're speaking Urdu, try not to use other words. You can speak 2-3 languages to your children. It's no problem. They'll learn 2-3 languages very fast. As many languages you speak in your home, that many languages the child will understand. But when you're speaking English, make sure you speak only English. And he should reply to you also only in English. It's not that, so that they can become good in their languages. That's the first thing that I would tell you, that please learn to speak only one language. When you're speaking that language, speak it purely. If you're speaking a particular Hindi, please speak purely Hindi with them. And then if you're speaking in English, and you should speak purely English at that time, not mix up anything, and then they will never be able to express themselves in any language properly. Okay, this is the first thing I would tell to all of you.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Dandavats.
Yeah.
Prafulla Kumar Prabhu, you can unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I think you are able to hear me. My question is...
Yeah, you have to speak up a little. I can't hear you so well.
Sorry. My question is, I'll consider my personal example. I went to school in the childhood. I was trying to be a worker at some place after my education. And now, though it is appearing to be realistic that we need to bring back the education system or the traditional methods, but the concern or the mindset of career and assurance for the kids is running in my mind. So how one can overcome such mindset, and what kind of right understanding one should gain in this regard and train the kids accordingly?
You see, we have to understand one thing while we are working on these whole career concepts. As this whole, this whole pandemic and things like that have shown us that the careers which are industrial-based careers are so much uncertain careers that we're looking for. Technology is changing. I don't know what careers are you planning for your children, because in the next 20 years, we don't know where this whole world will go. What kind of technology will take over this world? Even where the medicine system is going to go. So we really don't know where things are going to go. But one thing is for sure, we will all need to eat. We will all need, our basic necessities. And basic necessities always come from nature. And if you do not know our nature, our environment, mind you, we are losing more than 200 species every day from this earth. And when we lose these things, we are going to become more and more vulnerable in this world. And so I really don't know what careers you're planning for your children, because this industrial career in the cities, and the way they are teaching people, they're not teaching people anything that I can understand of, because they're not preparing you for the next 20 years.
Hare
Krishna. Yeah, someone else? Question, is it okay, Prafulla?
Yes, Prabhu, go ahead. Please go ahead.
अब लइकनी में फीस काट जे लइको लमहर जो हसन गोर जो हसन त
Hare Krishna. Was that a question, or what is it? Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Speaking. Yeah, go ahead.
Prabhu, I have one question. As you mentioned about this, Prabhu, the problem, now we came to know the problem of this modern education system. But when we come to solution, Prabhu, that, for example, we see that, okay, we have some kind of Gurukul which is established by ISKCON at some places. But the knowledge about the local language and as you mentioned, the local history, at least I am not aware that it's been even given in the Gurukula established by ISKCON.
Yeah.
But what is the way out, Prabhu? How it can be revived? The way you mentioned now, it's so beautifully in this part of the critics. But how to revive these things, Prabhu?
As I said, it's not going to be one man's work. We have to actually come up, and we need communities. We need to work together to actually do it. It's not going to be one or two people. We really have to rethink the way we are thinking about education and the future of our children. In the next 20 years, what is that they will require? So, as I said, we have to start thinking this. The reason I'm talking about this is so that you all can start thinking about it, talking about it, making our plans. Like, for example, what I did one exercise some time back of people who have children or who want to keep education. I said, okay, please sit down and write down the kind of skills that you want your children to have. And what is it that they really need? And how do you want to provide this education? And mind you, again, we have to work together. We have to find out ways and means to work together to do it. We are trying our best in our circumstances to live back on the land without electricity, without modern amenities, without machinery, without modern communication methods. We're trying our best what we can do. But yeah, we need to connect. We need to work together to find out how we can do this, how we can bring our children back onto the land, how we can develop an education system that is going to which is real, which will give them real skills of the world, and also connect them back to their language, back to their heritage. We really need to work on it. There's a lot of work to be done.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, one follow-up question, Prabhu. Prabhu, now we see for example, if I'm just talking about ISKCON now, the Gurukulas which have established, a few Gurukulas, what we have right now. Then we see, for example, sometime when a devotee get inspired by such, readings or lectures, and they make the plan, and they try to put the children in the Gurukula somewhere. But sometime it happened practically, due to practical constraint, that they have to go to some other areas. From north to south or south to north, sometimes they have to put the children there in the Gurukul. So again, the purpose of, as you mentioned, about the local language, local history, and again, the purpose is defeated, Prabhu, in that case also. I mean, I'm just contemplating on this.
Yes, I am a little concerned about the local area, because you see, when you take a person away, a child away, and take him and train him up in another place, in some other language, that means he's not going to be able to come back to that area and preach or present his culture to his local area. So yeah, we need a lot of gurukuls in different areas, because we need to preach to a lot of people. And a lot of places need to be restored. So yes, there is a lot of work to be done. These current whatever efforts have been going on, they're showing us a way to it, but there is a lot of work to be done. And how to do it, we have to come together. We have to see how this whole thing has to happen. We have a lot of work to do. I mean, I didn't know about all these things, but somehow in the last 20 years, after moving to the land, I've realized these things. So therefore, I'm speaking about it. So therefore, we need to come together. I mean, we have to find out ways to do it. There's a lot of work to be done, and especially it is on the parents. They have to take the decision, or the younger people have to take the work on their shoulders. We are getting old, and until unless we see younger people coming on to do something, we cannot take it ahead. Yes, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah,
thank you, Prabhu.
Any other questions? Prabhu? Should we take any more questions?
Yeah, Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Can you hear my voice? Hare Krishna.
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Prabhu. My question is, we are actually, I am living in an industry area where most of the school and colleges are mainly industry oriented, and they give educations at par with that. So if at this juncture or at this point of time, if we start with this understanding that we could be able to move to lands and adopt the culture, and maybe going back to our villages and living there. So would it be appropriate once the child is a little grown up, so to start on such mission?
You see, my concern is slightly different. I mean, what you're saying is very correct, but my concern is different because I see the huge upheavals coming up in the next 20, 30 years in the way we are living. We are running out of resources, and most of the industries are dependent on mineral resources, right? Um, if you
Yes,
say any of the industries that you're running today is all dependent on resources, and we are running out of the resources. And when we're running out of the resources, then uh, what happens to the whole system is that we start uh, moving for ways and means to reduce the labor on or the workforce in these resources to make it more profitable. So we start paying people less, or we start automating and things like that. So this industrial society is taking us to a very difficult situation. Can you understand that? It is taking your children to a brink of they'll not have the skills to live. The skills that you're giving them today of an industrial culture will not be useful for them at that time. They won't know what to do with their skills. They will, and it will be so competitive that I don't know whether they'll be able to manage in that competitive world of industries and getting jobs and working hard. And there are hundreds and thousands of others going in for that. And companies want to reduce their overheads to make more profits. So do you really want to think that this is going to be the way you're going to, I mean, we're going to give them so much stress to live in this world. So I really am, education, the modern education system is for me a very, very fearful thing. So please rethink when you talk thinking about your children's careers and next 15, 20 years, a lot of upheavals are going to come. We are seeing resources are being depleted. We're seeing climate change. We're seeing land is getting degraded. Uh, every year we are seeing more and more land is getting degraded. More and more resources are going away. So we really have to rethink how the next 20, 30 years are going to be and where your children are going to be and will they have the skills to survive in that area.
thank you so much, Prabhu, for your guidance.
Yeah. Does it answer your question?
Yes, indeed. It has solved many. Yes.
Prabhu, with your
Yeah.
permission, we can take one last question, Prabhu.
Yes, okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, Chandesh Prabhu, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this class. It's always enlightening to hear from you, Prabhu. Prabhu, so as you had mentioned, one of the critics was the loss of language or the local language of the people. But in one way, Prabhu, I would feel that even like language English or something has
Can you speak up a little louder? I am not
somehow
able to hear
unified.
you.
Prabhu, can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay.
So it's like somewhat like the language English or like this mainstream language has somewhat unified the country as well. But maybe recovering or like what do you say, recovering the local languages something would somehow give sectarianism some rise, or like how do we approach that situation? Because we can see in like US and all those countries, there's a lot of differences of people, a lot of racism based on the language you speak as well. So how do we as devotees, or how do us approach that aspect as well?
See, when we make politics out of language, it is a different issue altogether. Because people have lost the understanding of how the language is connected to their land. So we have very nicely, one person has just explained to us. Now we are only bothered about the word, right? Can you understand? We are all worried about the word. We are all bothered about the language. But this
Yes,
language is disconnected from the land. It's disconnected from the world. So we are only trying to preserve a language without the land or the world around it, from which it evolved. So this disconnect is making people trying to preserve a language, which is again disconnected from the world. This disconnect is there. And because this disconnect is there from the word and the world is disconnected. So therefore, people of this competitiveness is coming. This was not there before. Everyone had their own local languages and they lived in that and they worked in that. But this whole industrialization that has come, and we have, the language and the world are connected. But when we disconnect it and want to make everything as one, people are losing touch with they're having an identity crisis. And in this identity crisis, because we're trying to make everyone fit into one thing, one kind of a system. And when you try to do that, it never works. We cannot fit everyone into one system. So people, actually, this whole language issue is a language, it's actually an identity crisis. And people are finding it difficult to, they cannot identify with this new language and the culture that comes out of it. Like, for example, I cannot identify with English and the culture that comes with it. We don't see, daffodils here, and we may read poems of daffodils and things like that, but there are no daffodils here. Not the way it is in the West, and a lot of things that grow there and it comes with the language is not here. So when that disconnect is there, he is trying to seek his identity in this world, and when he's unable to get the identity, then people have stresses, and they kind of fight for that, how to retain their identity. But disconnected from the land, identity, this whole identity is a problem now. So that is why we have a problem, because the disconnect of the word from the world. Okay, does that make sense to you?
Yes, Prabhuji. Actually, very nicely explained, Prabhu. Thank you. Looking at it a different, Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, shall we call it a day here today?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. We are very, very grateful to you, Prabhu, for enlightening all of us on a very, very important aspect. And we have to start a rethinking, actually, the way we are living our life, especially the grihasthas, as you mentioned, Prabhu. So thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you very, very much.
Thank
and
you.
We look forward to again have your Uniting Association tomorrow and day after. So all together, all the to please express our gratitude to Prabhu, and we'll chant one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra and Vaishnava Pranam Mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.